All right. Welcome to the Analytical Couch Potato Podcast.
Now with 50% less Chalkey.
Oh. Chalkey is having technical problems today, so unfortunately he can't join us. But you have us instead. My name's Gillian Daniels. I'm the book editor for the Analytical Couch Potato. With me is Marten Dollinger.
Hello again.
Jonah Comstock.
Hey, hey.
And Nathan Comstock.
Hello.
Awesome. Alright. So how y'all been doing?
Doing alright. Wish I watched more TV. Feel behind all you people.
I don't even have a TV.
Me neither. How ironic is that? None of us have TVs. Well, Gillian is the books editor. It's true. Maybe not having TV is kind of like a cool hipster thing.
Yeah, for me it's more about being poor.
Oh.
I mean, I just find it more convenient to watch TV on the internet.
Yes.
Well, I watch my TV in books.
Yeah. So do you guys want to go ahead and just get into it? I think first on the docket is magic. Do you want to discuss magic?
Yeah, we'll
we've
talk
been
about
wanting
Magic
to do
the Gathering.
a Magic the Gathering podcast for a little bit now. Marten, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, Marten. What's up? Tell us about magic cards.
I think I can be credited with bringing magic to the ACP in the first place as someone who wrote a very not good at all article about it before Nathan wrote a considerably better article about it. I just tried to... I made an attempt to make a connection between gameplay and storyline as presented by a collectible card game, and I think when Nathan wrote that article, he got that across a little bit better than I did. But for those of you who've been living under a rock since 1993, or, having an actual personal life since 1993, Magic the Gathering is a collectible card game to start off all the collectible card games that exist right now, and there are story elements tied into the cards that go along with the gameplay elements, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and the Magic as a property has sort of struggled over the years with how much of the story it wants linked to the cards, how much of the story it wants to tell in other forms. Like up until Innistrad, which was a set 2 years ago now, which was actually the first set we wrote about for the ACP, there were novels that came packaged with like the fat packs, which is like 9 booster packs. Yeah. So they stopped doing there was no novel for Innistrad at all. There were some web stories and things, but no real, concrete way of telling the story of the block. With Return to Ravnica, they started doing ebooks. And there is going to be a Theros ebook, but for some reason it's been delayed considerably. It's going to come out around Christmas.
Do you guys feel like there's something frustrating about the play experience when you haven't read the story yet? I've drafted so much Theros, and I really want to know what's happening on Theros with Elspeth and Xanagos and everybody.
Yeah, and even the Uncharted Realms articles, haven't been on Theros. They have a little bit, but they took a big break to talk about Commander, which is cool, but it's, that's like the one story outlet we have as Vorthos is a person who cares about the flavor of magic is called a Vorthos. I don't know why. But yeah, I'm excited about this ebook, even though I haven't read The Secretist, which I should have, because Jenna Halland is the author, and she's actually my favorite author on Uncharted Realms. I actually enjoy her stories more. So
I haven't actually gone in and read the stories in a while, but I have been watching the trailers that they release with each set, and that does a pretty good job of encompassing the gist of what's going on in the world. But as far as being frustrated with storylines and not being able to get as much from just playing with the cards, I haven't really had that problem, but that's just me. I like creating kind of my own storyline with the cards in front of me. Like, there's flavor from these different things that's sort of suggested by the card, and then I can take it from there and create a deck that works around the kind of thing that I want to go with.
That's true. I mean, you can't tell a lot of different stories with the cards, even though the overall story arc is always pretty much two wizards fight each other.
Yeah.
I mean, there's overarching stuff since the introduction of Planeswalker characters in Lorwyn. I mean, obviously there were Planeswalkers before Lorwyn, but they were different. Since the introduction of the current cast of Planeswalkers, there's these people who tie together our journeys to these different worlds, and so Theros has its own story that, if you're just a person who lives on Theros, then, all you know is what's going on right now with the gods, and they're probably turning into animals and having sex with people, but this is a PG-13 game, so we don't hear about that. But,
Oh, there are hints. Opaline unicorn?
Theros,
This took an unexpected direction.
for people who don't play Magic, is the Greek mythology top-down design set, in much the way that Innistrad was the Gothic horror set. And so, all sorts of tropes that we are associate with Greek mythology that they're having fun with, like there's Cyclopses and Minotaurs, and there's like a spell that turns everything into pig tokens.
Yeah, I particularly like that one as a reference to actual Greek mythology. It's fun.
So in this case, we have a little bit more of the story than we do in a normal Magic block, because we already know all of the stories that these things are tributes to.
And that somewhat harkens back to Arabian Nights, where they just flat out took the stories without even reskinning them, like a Scheherazade card or the Aladdin card.
And all the legends from Portal 3 Kingdoms are actually characters from Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which is a novel from like 15th century China. So
I think we're getting a little bit obscure, but yeah, we're talking about his older sets, and Three Kingdoms being particularly obscure since it wasn't actually released in this continent.
Well, the other thing that ties the story together from block to block in Magic that I think is really interesting and worth a short discussion of is, there's these Planeswalker characters, as Nathan said, but there's also the color pie itself, which sort of takes all kinds of disparate clans and groups of people and unites them to one another in both gameplay and story. So, Annex and Cymede are not associated with the Boros Guild because they're on a completely different plane, but because they're red-white, there's certainly Borosness about them. And so the struggle is sort of, the individual struggles that happen on each plane are distilled into these great ideological struggles that are universal and eternal.
And could you talk a little bit more about the color pie and what that actually means and how that ties into the game, how the game actually works?
A lot of people think that the color pie is like the greatest innovation in Magic. And basically there's 5 colors of Magic: black,
red, white, green, blue.
Yeah, I was gonna say a little bit about what each of them is, but they're associated with different creatures, and they're associated with different emotions, and they're associated with different motivations. And in fact, one of the big creators of Magic, Mark Rosenberg, likes to play this game. Wow, yeah, Mark Rosewater likes to play this game where someone names any character from anything, and he says how it fits in the color pie. So it's a way of looking at the whole universe.
I'm doing NaNoWriMo, and I've actually used the color pie in my novel, not actually in my novel, but as a way of visualizing my character's motivations and what does this person want. I've assigned color combinations to my main characters, and I actually go back to those and think, now, is this how a red or green character would react? It might not be as good as, like, Myers-Briggs, but it's a lot easier.
It's much better than Myers-Briggs, because Myers-Briggs is a horoscope. But anyways, that's interesting that you bring up being dorky enough to apply magic mechanics into decision-making in your real life, because I do the same thing. I've taken the rules regarding priority and how the logic of how cards interact with each other within the gameplay mechanics and applied that to my professional life. Because I work in finance a lot, and the different things that financial rules care about kind of work in similar ways, just because they seem sort of arbitrary and they affect things in kind of counterintuitive ways, and just having that logical aspect of a game to draw from there is kind of cool. So it's multifaceted. The game provides some philosophical things regarding the color pie and all that, and some mechanical things. It's a very literary game, like most games that we would probably talk about here or enjoy playing as the way that we are. But yeah, it's very literary. It's very logically minded. So yeah.
I was actually talking to someone on Facebook about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I said something about when she died triggering a new Slayer. And
yeah.
Do you realize that you're talking about this as if she's a magic card?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, guys, do you have any thoughts to sort of wrap this up? Any sort of big things that Magic has sort of given to your life?
Would have been a good thing to wrap it up, but we've gone on since since then. So.
Well, I mean, I think this is a good time to announce that from now on, every article on the ACP is going to describe fictional characters in terms of the color pie, so phone up.
Oh, okay.
And, converted Manitas
I think we
will also
probably
be relevant.
we did one article on Innistrad. We did one article in Return to Ravnica. So we probably should do one article on Theros block before it's over.
Maybe.
I don't know when that's going to come out, but probably yeah.
What else is on the docket, Jill?
Korra. Specifically the follow-up to the Legend of Korra season finale, which just aired on TV last night.
Oh, it finally aired on TV. It was on the internet a week before. Do you know why that was a thing?
Nicktoons was doing a special thing where Tumblr users were able to unlock the final episodes.
That's interesting and probably says something about how television watching is, shifting online. They're probably experimenting with that so they don't get left behind when they do that sort of thing. So that's cool
right,
that they did that. Probably says something.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to start off on talking about Season 2, Jill?
Do we need to put a spoiler alert on this conversation before we jump into it for our listeners?
Oh, yes.
I think we probably should have a spoiler alert.
This is a big-ass spoiler.
Go watch
the
Korra
final
and come
seasons
back
of
and listen to
season
the
2.
rest.
Korra
Yeah.
dies.
So...
I have some thoughts.
Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
I can start.
All right, go ahead.
Alright, so Legend of Korra Season 2, Book of Spirit. It's very unusual, one in that the book's name is not one of the 4 elements of the series. The other in that the book is all about Korra coming to terms with her role as the Avatar in a very unique way, one in which she discovers she can politically influence people. This season also has Unalaq, a villain who's very, very similar to Amon and Tarlok from last season, but who happens to be her uncle, and the entire thing, the first part, devolves into a civil war between the North and Southern Water Tribe. So it's a very unique season in that respect. And then the final episodes just become awesome.
The final episodes, since we did put a spoiler warning, spend a lot of time in the spirit world, which is something that we saw in Avatar The Last Airbender, but was not explored to much extent. Aside from in the first season finale, Aang had to journey into the spirit world to find the ocean and
Yeah, it was sort of a gimmick that they messed with and hinted that they do again, but didn't really explore
But
too
this
much
season
after that.
focused very strongly on the spirit world. I think we spent a full 5 episodes in the spirit world.
Yes.
By the time the season was over.
Speaking of which, we see some old faces, by the way. What did you think of seeing Iroh again? And Zhao?
Yeah.
Wait, Zhao?
Admiral
That's
Zhao
exciting.
cameo was hilarious, I thought. And
It was my
they
favorite
didn't
cameo.
overplay it at all.
You gotta tell
But
me about his cameo,
it
'cause
raises
I missed that
an
guy.
interesting question about how spirits end up in the spirit world rather than passing on to the next life. Because obviously, some, like Iroh, were able to stay by choice, and others, I think because Zhao committed a grave crime against the spirits, maybe the spirits felt entitled to imprison him for all eternity in that mine.
In the pit of
place.
despair. He's
So-
there, and he's wandering around, and he's like, I'm Zhao.
I will
Moon
destroy the
Slayer.
Avatar. I will destroy the Moon Spirit. I am Zhao the Conqueror.
It's one of the moments in this season where I was like, yes, this is what I wanted out of Legend of Korra. Nods to the old series, but nothing that's like so completely dependent on creating a story for Legend of Korra.
And the owl, who I'm terrible with names, sorry, the owl who runs the spirit
Wan
library.
Shitong, he
Wan
knows
Shitong.
10,000 things.
I thought that
No, you have to say
his
it.
return.
Wan Shitong, he who knows 1,000 things.
10,000.
I felt like they didn't bring him
10,000
back just for a
things.
gimmick. He had an important enough
He
role in
did.
the story, and having Jonah be the character that she is, who kind of is obsessed with learning and
Books.
discovery, the library obviously presents an enormous temptation for her. So I thought that was all very well thought out. I want
Oh.
to talk before we're done talking about Korra about.
Wait a second. We have one more person who showed up from the last series in a horrifying manner in the library.
The scientist guy?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
What
You
did
see
he
his-
do? What happened with him?
You see his body?
But
He
how
died
is
the
he
way
a
he
corpse if he
lived.
was already in the spirit world? Wait, I guess his body came to the spirit world.
Yeah, he got,
it's a
buried in
skeleton.
sand and stuff.
Yeah, that's what happened. He's a skeleton with a book propped open on his lap, and it's horrifying.
Like
That's
he
pretty
just
awesome.
died reading.
It's so cool.
So,
Martin, go ahead.
I just,
Gotta
before
go.
we're done talking about Korra, I want to make sure we touch on the Legend of Juan, the special episode that flashed us back to the first Avatar, because I thought that was just an incredibly well-crafted piece of storytelling in general. Like, if I had never seen Avatar or heard of the property and I just watched that episode, I feel like I would have gotten everything I need to know from it. I thought it was the best two episodes of the entire series so far, even though it had none of the characters from the series, so that's kind of weird to say, but I loved it. I watched it like 3 times. What did you think, Gillian?
I liked it too. It's very beautiful. It's the return of Studio Mirror. They changed animation studios during this season, which is why a lot of the characters just looked weird. The big problem I had with those 2 episodes is, well, like you said, you don't really advance the plot points of any of the characters who are in Korra. Also, it was such a return to form to the Avatar The Last Airbender series. I wasn't surprised when I saw in an interview that Mike DiMartino and Brian Konietzko gave for Speakeasy recently, that they originally visualized the first Avatar story happening during The Last Airbender, like exploring that then.
That doesn't surprise me either. I hadn't heard that, but
Yeah.
I feel like even though it's frustrating to me that they used, 2 episodes, if it was only a 14-episode season, to do that, because it did limit how they could tell the rest of the story, but I felt like it gives... they could have made that as an independent short film and released it, in between the shows. That would have been awesome. But it does give context to the whole series and to this season in particular. It's important for us to know.
It does tie in the season finale and the use of Rava and Korra's connection, the Avatar's connection to Rava.
And the Avatar state, we see it differently, I think, when we know how that came into being.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's essentially a trickster figure, that he basically steals the elements.
He steals the fire from the gods. That's
Yeah.
literally what happens. It's perfect.
I thought it was a brilliant origin story, and the animation was beautiful and kind of reminded me of Studio Ghibli kind of stuff.
Spirited Away, there's definite references there especially with the spirit who had the hot baths.
Spirited Away.
Yeah.
Because they're spirits. It's a joke. Jokey joke.
Thank you, Martin.
You're welcome. I'm participating.
Yeah. Anything else really interesting that we haven't touched on? How about...
Shinora's Jesus.
What's his... Yeah,
Sorry.
that was odd. The entrepreneur guy, Varric.
Varric.
What do we think about Varric?
He escapes. He escaped from prison. After being put there for being a dick.
He also was kind of a callback to Last Airbender in some ways. Just that sort of way over the top character that he was. Just reminded me of, first episode with King Boomy and some of that, more goofy stuff that, I don't know, not that Korra hasn't had its share of goofiness, but just the way his servant is always there with tea, even in the most ridiculous
Julie! Take a note.
He's an amazing, ridiculous character, and he really kept us guessing. We still don't really know. He's not really a good guy or a bad guy. He's looking out for himself, but he was, all of the evil stuff he did, he was trying to help Korra.
Do you think he'll show up in season 3?
I'm almost certain he'll show up in season 3.
Do you think he'll be
They didn't have him break
out?
out of prison in the finale for no reason.
Yes. With Julie. Julie, do the thing!
What's the thing?
She releases bat wings and they fly out of the prison together.
Oh.
Or glide.
Yeah, I think that the next season is gonna... My theory is that the next season is going to have a large time skip. Maybe at least a few months, maybe a year. And we are going to see the effects of Korra's decision.
I'm sorry to
at the
disappoint
end
you.
of
They just
season
confirmed
1.
in the interview it's just going to be a 2-week skip.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that speculation's dead.
I'm sorry.
Because I figured that the third season would be about, the effects of the decision that Korra makes at the end of season 2.
It will be. Just
And thought that it would take a little while for those effects to occur. Maybe they start happening right away.
Probably. Do you think Asami's character will be explored more? That was the big thing that concerned me this season.
Oh yeah, they didn't do anything with her.
Well, I mean, she's used in a plot point way because, she's trying to put together her dad's business again, and, that ties into Ferric, and then, she has that romance with Mako. Oh, Mako and Korra broke up.
Of course they did.
I was really pleased with that,
So
because...
I'm also pleased with that, retroactively, as someone
They
who
broke
hasn't
up,
been
and then they
watching.
got back together for a little while again, and then they broke up again at the end.
It all feels fairly realistic for teen romance.
Yeah, they're
at this
teenagers.
point. Yeah.
They're not going to be together forever.
Yeah,
Except
and
apparently
the
Aang
idea...
and Katara were.
Well, Aang and Katara were
Well,
teenagers.
they're all like old-fashioned and stuff.
I kind of like the idea that the first person you fall in love with isn't the person you're soul bonded to for the rest of your life. That's
Back to
pretty
magic.
cool.
No, I think they. Yeah, it's so long. I've been thinking about that in a more general sense as something that could use some ACP exploration.
Sure. Do you want to write the article, or should I?
There's a TV trope about it.
Together forever?
First girl wins.
Oh.
Where the guy goes through all these other women, but he always ends up with the first one he met.
I think that it as an audience, we
How I Met Your Mother brings that.
we root for the first one because it gives the story a sense of sort of connectedness from the beginning to the end. It has nothing to do with like how a romance actually works. It's all about how a story works.
Yeah.
So, do we want to get into talking about Thor 2 a bit?
Oh, yeah.
Man.
Something that I really appreciate about Thor 2 is it's, the first Thor did this, and I guess it's something that the Marvel movies have done in general, but it's lack of TNA.
See, say more, because I might have a rebuttal.
What's TNA?
Tits and ass. If I can
Thank
say
you.
that. Do I have to be beeped out or something for saying ass? I can say ass on the internet, right? This is the internet, not the radio. We get a lot of eye candy out of,
Sorry,
Hemsworth.
Chalkey, we filled up your podcast with cursing.
Play the song on the internet. I didn't even get that.
But yeah, I mean, you've got Natalie Portman, and you've got other girls whose real names I can't remember, who are very
Cat
attractive.
dadding.
Yeah, and there's no cleavage, and they're dressed like people instead of dressed like.
Who had all the cleavage didn't show up again?
Lady Sif. Even she's like reasonably.
No, her armor is like something that would prevent combat damage rather than metal bikini.
That's impressive. Reasonable
Martin, you just trust the archers not to aim for the boobs.
Wait, we're trusting men not to look at boobs?
Aim for, not look at.
I don't know, I don't have a problem with the cleavage armor as it stands, just that there's so much of it. I just want diversity in how a woman is going to dress on the combat field.
Well, exactly,
One
and
of them wants-
it's not in there in Thor. It's actual,
Magic's
effective
actually
armor.
been
Yeah,
really good
that's
about
awesome.
that lately.
Okay, so I maybe don't have a rebuttal, but I will say that what I don't like about Thor 1, Thor 2, is that it has that sort of romance in it that is mostly sort of like perfunctory. Oh, I'm the hunky male lead, and you're the spunky female lead, therefore we must be in a romance. And our love is so important and real! But there's never actually any point where Thor courts or romances her, really, at all.
There is that, and that's something that bugged me about the second movie. The second movie, it seemed very...
They just sort of cuddle while they exposition.
Yeah. And it's more than just that. Like, the movie itself was a good thing it was a good finished product, but I felt like there were individual pieces that could have been managed a lot better, like could have been better written, could have been more interesting, could have been explored more, and that's definitely one of those elements. Like when you have that awkward date scene with the extra guy when we're first getting back to her, and she's like clearly distracted because she misses Thor because he's been gone for 2 years. We don't really explore that much. It's just sort of awkward and not nearly as hilarious and or cute as it could have been. It was definitely a cute scene,
It was a
but
good
it could have
scene,
been better.
and the callback was good too.
So we are coming up on 30 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
So, compressed thoughts, last thoughts on Thor 2? Maybe a bit?
Oh,
If
yeah.
you liked Thor 1, but you wanted a little more action and action intrigue, you'll
We
probably
do
like
get to see Thor being Thor, which is something we didn't see in the first one, because, he was all human and getting his powers back, so that was exciting, to see all the heroes do the thing that they do as heroes.
And we get to see Loki being all sorts of people.
Oh, yeah. That was great.
I did.
See Thor 2, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode they made to tie in with Thor 2 was really good, but it had very little to do with Thor 2. But I think it was their best episode yet, but none of you want to talk to me about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because none of you are watching it.
I will.
We'll get
watch.
to
Been
that
burned
next
too
time.
many times before by Joss Whedon shows.
Dollhouse.
All right, are we?
Yeah.
All right.
Are we out?
Yeah, I guess
Any
we'll
final
call it
thoughts?
on that.
Right. Well,
Um,
everybody wish good thoughts for Chalkey's computer.
Yes.
Keep it in your
Rest in
prayers.
peace. Hopefully
If
not.
you have prayers.
Techno prayers.
We'll,
Yes.
we'll
Pray
catch
to the
you
machine
next
god.
time on the ACP
All right.
podcast.
All right. Ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Oh wait, my mic's working.
Oh, Chalkey, you're still here.
Okay, before we wrap up, everyone, thanks for listening to the ACP podcast. Everyone, Gillian, Marten, Nathan, Jonah, good job on the podcast, and Marten, you're fired.
Oh,
I mean, I just find it more convenient.
fine.